right, and welcome to the live stream show. And today we are asking the question, what makes work resonate? And here's the thing, we're just kind of coming off this long period of the information age. And everything is all about how much information can we find? How much information can we share? How can we all turn ourselves into some kind of online expert so that people look to us for the information that they need? And the big problem with all of that is you can't actually out information the internet. And information has really become this flat thing where, Wikipedia is there and Google is there. And so if people want to find something out, if they just want information, well, they don't necessarily go looking for you. They just go online, type in a question, and find their answer. And then they're gone. So how can you do something with the work that you're doing, with the communication that you're doing, with getting your message out into the world that will connect with people in a way that is more meaningful, that actually matters to them? And this is the question that my guest has been exploring for the past several years. His name is Jay Acunzo, and he is a writer, he is a podcast host, he is a producer of shows, and I've been following one of his shows that was called 3 Clips, which was this deep dive into what makes for a really great show production. And it would break down the creative process behind some of the very best podcasts in the world. It was my favorite show. But he was continually asking the question of how can you make something that matters, and how can you do something that is somebody's favorite thing? Good questions, right? These are the questions that we're asking today. So stay tuned, don't touch that dial, and we are going to start the show. Recorded live in Boston, Massachusetts, this is the Livestream Show. In a world full of underexposed entrepreneurs, the Livestream Show is your gateway to a global community of live stream pioneers who dare to go live and create something special and unexpected, which could only happen because it was live. I'm your host, Brad Powell. Let's get on with the show. All right. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate it. I love the production value of the show.
Thank you. And I've been working on it. It's always fun. Well, I do video, so I like to bring in the video elements. Even though this, in the future will be an audio podcast too. So it's really hard to share those visual elements on a podcast.
Yeah, you have to master sound design, I assume, to get that level of imagery in someone's mind.
That's right. Okay, so in order to start us off here, the place that I would like to start has to do with this difference between your whole approach to doing the kinds of work that you do, which, instead of positioning yourself as an expert, the thing that you do really well, and the thing that probably drew me to you in the first place, when I first came across your work, was you're going out into the world as an explorer and as an investigator, and positioning your whole thing of what you share around, I'm going to go out in the world and I'm going to try and find things out. I have this theme, this question, these things that I'm looking for, and I'm going to find out about them. I'm going to learn what I can, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to share these treasures with you guys, the audience. And so can you go a little bit deeper there and explain, why are you choosing to do your whole thing this way?
It's how I learned it. Rather than act like an expert, I consider myself an investigator. And I think there's a danger in acting like an expert today, because for a couple of reasons. Number one is they're everywhere. They're a quick Google search away. You have infinite numbers of experts. So as surprising or unthinkable as it might sound, experts and especially their expertise, but also experts themselves, have been commodified today. It almost doesn't matter where you get it. There's no relationship really. It's like, I can get this answer anywhere. I happen to find you. You're anywhere. I'll go with you. And so the game becomes, I have to rank first on Google, or I have to shout louder on Twitter. As I have to reach people before people who say they do the same exact thing as me reach them, because otherwise I have no real differentiator, no real reason they should care about me, the source. And it's not good for business. It's also not good for the relationship. There is no relationship that forms. So that's one issue, is we're living in the era of the commodified expert. And the second issue is, or the second reason I act this way, is I feel like a lot of folks hand out how-tos or regurgitated insights. It's very rehashed. It's like, I've been there before. I get it. I've seen this elsewhere. And what ends up happening is, it's like the expert is handing out directions when what the person really needed was a compass. Very rarely are someone else's directions exactly what we need, because as soon as we go off on our way and encounter some kind of obstacle on the path, and we will, those directions are rendered useless. It's like an ant. You ever see an ant when you're like, you put a little twig in front of them and they're like marching in one direction, all of a sudden they freak out and don't know what to do because it wasn't in the directions. It's not wired into the programming for the ant. Well, obviously we don't want to act like that. We are creative people. We want to solve problems in the world. We want to resonate deeper with our audiences. And so I think it behooves us to understand, north, south, east, and west, how a compass works, how to get our true bearings, what is our driving force, our mission, our cause, our reason for being, all the foundations of things that we might bring with us, including things that don't look like the work, but affect the work, like who we are and our voice and all of these things. That self-awareness is more powerful to then walk into any scenario, find your bearings, and know how to figure it out yourself based on the uniqueness and the variables of your specific context. And so both because we're overrun by experts and because a lot of the expertise being shared has a very short shelf life, I think it's a lot more empowering for me as an individual to find my voice in my tribe, and also better for business, quite frankly, to act like an investigator instead of an expert.
Yeah, I love that about finding a compass or providing a compass rather than providing directions, I'll have to remember that next time somebody asks me for directions on the street. I'll say, well, I could tell you where to go, but what you really need is this compass, and just give it to them.
Well, that's the thing, is I think most of our work, people are asking questions as if they think, can you just tell me how to get to point B? And
Right.
You might be saying, if you really got to know that person, you might actually find that you're heading in the wrong direction entirely. And isn't that a better service to the person to help them figure out if they're even driving in the right direction? When I'm from the marketing world, so you get a lot of questions. How do you grow your followers on, I'll use Twitter as an easy example. Well, that's not actually the point. So I'm assuming now that all the things that you've thought through or done that arrives at that question is actually going to matter or was in the right direction. It's like in marketing, people want to know, how do I get people to share my work? Well, how about we start creating things that are shareable first? So what somebody says they want, and what you, as somebody who has taste and an opinion and expertise and a desire to share, what you might say to them is, I know that's what you want, but deep down, I actually know what you need. And you can't just come out and say that, right? So you have to meet them where they're at and say, okay, that's what you want. That's the mountain peak in the distance. Okay, great. Well, I think I have a different way, or here are all these questions we might ask instead that we can't just quickly Google and find a little box at the top of the search results, that we have to go and investigate. And so that's kind of how I operate. I'll say I'm frustrated by something. That frustration turns into curiosity. And then I go and investigate, and I tell stories and try to write about that. And eventually there's some kind of system or book or course or stuff that we can consider the area that experts play. But for me, that's way down the road. And I didn't get there by having the answer. I think I got there by hopefully asking the right questions.
Yeah, I just, from a business perspective, or rather a business person's perspective, I think this is something where people get really hung up in that they feel like they need to be an expert. They need to show up as, look, I am the expert, I am the authority, and it's an inhibiting force. People are afraid to go out and be seen as something less than expert, and it holds them back. Whereas this way of searching for things and this way of communicating your message is so liberating, because it's taking the lid off of that. It's just like, well, I don't I don't need to tell you all the answers. We're going to go, together. You're going to join me, and we're going to go find out what this is. And this is a group experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think ego or fear maybe lead us to thinking I have to be the expert. But when again, coming out of marketing, what you learn is what causes people not just to glance your way, which you might call that awareness, but to run all the way into your corner. So you might call that affinity, which is what awareness promises. If only more people knew I existed, they'd love me, or they'd love my message or product or service. Focus on the love part first. Believe me. Don't make the assumption that just people knowing you exist automatically means they'll love you. It's a dangerous assumption. Setting that dangerous assumption aside, though, what you think about or what you learn being in modern marketing is it's actually not about the how-tos. If you can empower someone to sort of smack their head and go, of course, oh my goodness, it's so silly, I didn't see it that way before and now I do. Or if you can sort of speak to someone's soul. In other words, when you tap into the personal, emotional reasons people care about stuff, then all the rest comes later, the how-tos, the tips and tricks, the things that people are trying to sort of puff up. And that's why you see that the screws turning on people who trade in that is like they care about the algorithms constantly. They worry about the next new social network all the time. They arbitrage opportunities over and over again. They spam DM you. Why? It's because what they're building their businesses on is fundamentally not that sound. It's not that sturdy. But the belief system is the ability to bring people along with you or resonate emotionally. That is. And then later you might say, okay, now you're ready to here's how I do it. Here's my methodology, or here's something I can give you that sounds like a how-to. But even better is like, you don't need that. You can do the exact specifications of my how-tos as a podcaster. And I've done 500 episodes and it might fall apart for you, but it worked for me. Why? We have to investigate that. We have to be aware of how to mold what we're learning from these self-proclaimed experts to our specifics, right? Best practices don't matter. It's about finding the best approach for you. And I can't give you that, but I might be able to try and impart some of the tools or vision to you that enable you to find the answers all on your own. And I think it's a way better way to lead, to empower yourself, to empower others. And it takes care of that imposter syndrome we feel where we're like, oh, I have to be the expert or else no one's going to take me seriously.
Yeah, and you're touching on another area that I think the whole creator influencer world has really gone off the rails, which is that the big goal is I want a bigger reach. I want to find more people. I want more and more people just simply to know that I exist, and I want to reach as many people as I can. Like if I have millions and millions of people watching me on YouTube, then hallelujah, all my problems are solved. And it's, like this is where people are becoming slaves to the algorithm, and they're dependent upon social media for their life's blood or their business life's blood. And the difference between what they're trying to make happen and their values, you get this huge differentiator going on here. And yeah, I mean, what's the point? You end up with these kind of not faceless, but hollow messaging going on. Just like there may be lots of people, but there's nothing there. Or you may be doing something quote unquote spectacular to grab attention, but underneath there's no sustenance. I used to refer to social media as social snack. It was like snack food. And you're not actually getting the things that we need for social gathering. We're just eating potato chips. And, it keeps our mouths busy, but it doesn't actually sustain us with very much of anything.
Well, what Jack Conte, the CEO of Patreon, likes to say is what is clickable and what has value. Very different sets of art, very different ideas and sets of information. And we are operating in a global system called the internet that incentivizes what is clickable, because both the advertising revenue based businesses and also the folks that think that the solution is more to no end, that's what they chase. And so you do get this race to the bottom. Even though when I say more, or I say reach, you might think out there and bigger. I actually see us looking exactly down at the ground and just plummeting towards it as a group. The more we think about reach. And I understand it. I feel it in my tougher days. If only more people listen to my show, if only this or that, the math of the funnel will work out, for example. But how about straightening the funnel? How about each and every individual that encounters you is more valuable more quickly? In other words, they're more likely to cement a relationship with you. That's why I love making shows. Is it's really hard to create a deep, passionate love from fans through tweets. It's really hard playing on any algorithmic based platform that you don't own to craft an experience that really hits home emotionally, because my look and feel on Twitter is very similar to everyone else's look and feel on Twitter. But if I can put you in an environment where we can have a nice, long, nuanced chat as we would offline, or if I can give you some sort of different way to think or story, or if I can, again, tap the emotional reason you care about a topic and not just explore the topic at face value, but have a belief that aligns with your belief, all these things that play out in longer form media, quite frankly. If I could do that, well, then every individual who comes my way is more valuable in my business, right? Like it connects. The emotional side and the financial side should connect, but it's a lot scarier, Brad, to say, well, I haven't built my business or delivered a service or a product or content in the world such that I can increase the value. I can charge more, or I can, make sure more people are buying. And so, but if only I had more. So it becomes like a very convenient way to hide, right? Rather than try and improve the mechanics of everybody after they've already found me and what happens then, all the way down to the things I'm able to deliver and muster up in this world, that's scary, right? Because you're on the hook. But you can very easily take yourself off the hook and feel momentarily better in one way if stressed in another, if you say, but my boss, but the algorithm, but the total number of followers or audience members I have. I think it's a very convenient place to hide. And I hide there constantly. And so part of this journey I'm on really is to try and remind myself that, oh, actually, this is the work. It's not reach. It's resonance, and nothing comes after that, including reach, without first getting that resonance from each individual that encounters your work.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk a little bit about resonance in terms of, if I want to resonate, it's a little bit like the word authenticity. Where do I find the authentic switch so I know that I'm being true or authentic or real in some way? And so if I really want to resonate, do you have, is there a baseline that I can say, okay, here's my first entree into doing anything that will resonate? And how do I even know that it's working?
There's so many sort of, not many, I don't want to belittle what I'm about to say or how important it is for you, the creator who might be watching or listening, but there's so many steps that precede that. So for example, it's really hard to resonate with others if the work you're doing does not resonate with you. Some people are in love with the mechanics of like how marketing works, how building a business works, and they flit between industries and topics and types of products and services, and more power to them. But I think if they were to then go and write about something, they're going to have a tougher time embodying the problem they're here to solve, because they're not intrinsically motivated by solving that problem or serving that audience. And so I think the first hurdle to get over is it's got to resonate with you. There's something about the work that's intrinsically motivating, where the process is the reward. You're moment oriented, not ending oriented. And this is why so much content, especially in our world of teaching career and business topics, Brad, rings hollow. Is because people go, oh, live streaming video, oh, podcasting, oh, that will get me an audience. Sure, I'll try that. And then as soon as someone says, no, it's not working anymore, it's dead, try this, they move on to the other thing. They'll use whatever means to trigger the end. And so as a result, they stop paying attention to the means. They stop paying attention to the craft. So the giant caveat that I just want to throw up here is nothing else I'm going to say in this interview matters if the work you're doing doesn't actually resonate with you. In talking to one of my favorite writers on my show, Tim Urban, from the blog Wait But Why, he said he writes for a stadium of Tims. And I love that. It's like, create the things you want to see exist in the world. And if it's not hitting home with others, you might have to work on how you package and communicate it so people see the value in it. But don't just do whatever someone else says will work, because it's not going to resonate with you. I guarantee it won't resonate with others. So I just wanted to throw up that first giant, not stop sign, but let's say yield sign in the equation.
Yeah, that's great. It resonates. I mean,
Well, and you
I
asked
just
about that topic, so I just wanted to make sure that we came at it from the point of view of the individual creator before we talk about the recipient of the work.
no, absolutely. I had a really creative photographer and videographer on an interview just a couple of weeks ago. His name is Pete Longworth, and this is where he started. You know, he basically said the content you create is for you, and if you come at your work
Yes,
from
well
that
said, Pete.
place, that's what it takes. Like that's where it's at completely. In terms of doing work that is worth doing, in terms of doing
Yeah.
anything that will actually matter to anybody, it's got to start here.
And you did ask me an interesting question, which is like, how do you know it's resonating with others? I think, there's all these qualitative ways you can look at it. I've read a newsletter to thousands of people every Friday. Uh, what I look for are two responses. I say in my head, I'm like, I need to get my two. If I get my two, I've done a good job. Because one data point, that's an outlier. Two data points starts to make a trend. If I get two people to respond to the email or say something nice and original out on social media, not like thanks or a retweet, but an actual comment that lets me know, wow, this did actually hit home, some kind of emotional outpouring or building on my ideas, maybe, that's enough, right? So I have that strong signal. But that ultimately is almost like putting a finger up to the wind. It's helpful, it's directional, but there's a step further you can go, which is, I think, most of us measure metrics about who arrives, not who stays. And the simple switch we might want to start making is, are you looking harder at not who arrives or how many, but who stays or how many? So to measure that, you have to measure things that are only earned. They can't be purchased. So things like downloads to a podcast, visits to a website, emails on your list, you can buy those things. Especially for emails, you shouldn't, but you can, right? So you can measure them, or you could also just buy them. You can game that system. You can't really game a system of people replying to your email and saying something original about your ideas. You can't really buy people finishing your episodes if you're a podcaster or a video showrunner. Those are earned. Episode completions, responses to your emails, who stays. It's really hard to trick and coerce your way into that. And you can lace things with all the game mechanics and free giveaways at the end of the episode that you want, but ultimately it's going to work itself out over time, where the people that actually stay are staying because you're serving them. They feel something about what you're doing. You're adding value. And so if you're trying to learn, am I doing that or not? You have to start measuring what is only earned and can't be purchased. And there's a number of things across a number of projects that'll do that, but that's sort of the mental switch that I found helpful in my career. And if you look at the work that we're doing, we're trying to spark action, right? We don't want a bunch of people just to visit. We do want them to stay. Because that's where the action comes out. That's where they buy or refer or whatever they subscribe. Those are the things that we actually want. And so we're all in the business of action. And if you care about sparking action from other people, you automatically care about resonance. It's just that we don't have some nice, neat analytics tool to show us that. So we do have to get creative.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think one of the pieces that seems to be most relevant around, what's going on and is this resonating with anyone, is when people are actually not just reacting to you, but they start reacting back and forth with one another, and you get the sense that, oh, what's going on here is there's a community being developed around this journey, this experience, whatever it is that you're creating, in your messaging, people are having an experience, like you're creating an experience for them and with them, and they're sharing in that not only with you, but with one another. And it kind of goes back to, I really like the marketing lessons from the Grateful Dead. I'm going to date myself. I'm a former Deadhead. And, but that band, this is way, way before the internet or anything like the internet, but
Right.
They were so creative in what they did, in that they really empowered their fans to not only come to their concerts, but to record their music
Yeah.
and then share it with their friends and even bootleg it, like share it and sell it. But this provided and grew their audience to large proportions so that every time they did a live show, they would fill whatever, venue they were in. And they always provided an experience for the audience, which was new. It was not the same show. They didn't just do their top 40, or they didn't have any top 40 songs, but they didn't do that, on rinse and repeat. All the deadheads who literally would travel from one experience to another did it because, first of all, they knew that they were going to see something that only happened then. And they were going to be with the other deadheads. Like they were going to be with their tribe and their people. And this is something like, when I think about resonance, I think about things like that. It's sort of like these real-time experiences. It's why I actually really love the live medium, whether it's, video like this or even with the social audio that's happening now. The idea that you can create an experience for people where they're literally part of that experience and they're co-creators in what's going on.
I love that. It might make sense to even end here with a definition where, reach and resonance are two things we see pitted against each other or in relationship to each other. I think very simply, reach is how many see it. Resonance is how much they care. And it's not just that you've tricked them into caring, right? It's about the alignment that you're able to establish early on in the relationship. And what it creates is the sudden urge to act. So if you roll it all together, what you have is resonance as the sudden urge to act when a message or an experience aligns closely enough with your own life experience or beliefs, such that your thoughts, your feelings, your ability to act feel somehow amplified. And if you look at the science of resonance in the audio sense or the vibration sense, you have something called the resonant frequency. That's what unfolds in the sciences. When there's a system resonating at the same frequency, like swinging someone on a swing set, if you were to match their frequency with the push at the right amount of time, pushing them forward as they're moving forward, you amplify them. So resonant frequency is one that matches another frequency, thus amplifying it. So literally what we're in the business of doing is transferring an energy to our audience such that they feel this urge to act. And again, if we're in the business of sparking action, which I think every single person creating anything really is, unless it's a hobby for you, if it's a business, you're in the business of action. That's why resonance matters. It matters to each and every one of us, but it's just not that well understood. And so you caught me in the middle of this journey, Brad. I'm trying to understand it, find stories and frameworks and heuristics for it. And who knows, in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, I might come back on the show because I'll have the book or something from this investigation. But for now, that's as far as I've gotten.
Well, that's great. Well, yeah, we'll have to definitely do that, looking forward to a part 2, especially when the book comes out. That'll be awesome.
That'll be great.
Anyone who wants to join you on this journey, I know your show is called Unthinkable, the show that you are doing now and the one that you've actually been doing probably the longest. And so if people want to hook up with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Unthinkable is definitely it. I have a newsletter that complements it. The show is other people's stories. The newsletter is my own perspectives, trying to make sense of these ideas, but it's the same journey through the newsletter and the show, and both can be found at jayacunzo.com.
All right, jayacunzo.com. I think, hang on just a second. I have it here. I believe I have it here. There we go. All right, can bring it on. Ta-da.
There we go. Awesome.
All right, well, Jay, this has been a fascinating conversation. I want to know more. I'll be following you over on Unthinkable myself. And yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Brad. I really appreciate it.
All right. So for you who are still listening, this has been the live stream show. And if you want to catch all the previous episodes and never miss a future episode, you can check out the livestreamshow.com, where you can subscribe, you can share, you can tune in to the entire archive of everything that we've done in the past, and you will never miss an episode in the future. You can always listen to the whole archive on any of the podcast apps that exist out there. And of course, the best way to join, the very best way, is to join us live. 3 p.m. on Mondays, 3 p.m. on Thursdays. And until next time, I will see you on the next live stream. So long.